A reading from Undead Redhead by Jen Frankel.
I wanted to say a special thanks to Nicole Chardonnay, who's done an awful lot of work to get this event going tonight. And of course to the environment itself, thanks so much for having us over. So first of all, I'm going to introduce Jen Frankel. She is the author of the Blood and Magic series, set in Toronto. Their series of supernatural thrillers featuring heroine Maggie Stewart. Her latest books are Feral Tales, which is a collection of stories, short stories, and also Undead Redhead, about a sweet little vegan zombie living in Toronto. Undead Redhead is coming soon as a major motion picture, apparently, and is actually sold out in hardcover form in the last week. But Jen will be happy, of course, to take orders and deposits and send a copy to you if you're interested. She's well known in the Toronto area here and has in fact been a guest at very large gatherings such as the Fan Expo and other literary conventions around Toronto. So everybody, please put your hands together to greet Jen Frankel. Thanks so much.
I like that you called it the Fan Expo Literary Convention. Last time, actually I met some of the authors. I think I met Stephen. Did I meet Stephen Girl at the Fan Expo last year? And I'd met Karen before. No. Oh no, I met Karen there too. Fan Expo it's really just a big meet and greet for people who want to meet other authors. That's really the only reason people go. No, they actually put the authors underneath the down escalator. So people weren't looking our direction when they came down the escalator. They went straight into the dealer's room. There was absolutely no reason for them to come back out the way we were going because there were even better washrooms than the ones beside us. I think if we had the good washrooms, maybe more people would have come to see us. And then when they went out the up escalators, which were facing in a totally different direction. So I don't know about Karen and Stephen, but I felt like we were a little bit under-visited last year. So I don't know if that was on purpose because people would rather look at pictures than read words. I don't think so. The thing I've noticed about going to conventions is that, in truth, there are people who read books, and they will always read books. And it's always going to be the same number of people who read books, and they will always be hungry for books. And that's what makes my life so much easier, and so much more pleasant. Tonight I'm going to be reading from Undead Redhead. This is a project that started out about 2 years ago as a web series. Got optioned as a web series, then the producers said, let's do an hour TV. I said, okay, I wrote it. They said, let's do a feature instead. I said, okay, and I wrote it. And then I thought to myself, hang on a second. I know what producers are like. They're going to start saying, let's change the ending, let's change the characters. So I decided to write the novel to make sure that it was worth it. Sadly, my producer is a smart guy and knew exactly what I was doing and called me on it. But this is Undead Redhead. It's about a sweet little vegan zombie living mostly in behind a dumpster behind a vegan restaurant in Kensington Market, looking for rotten couscous. And this section also contains the absolute longest sentence I think I've ever written. It's 258 words, and let me see if you can recognize it as I go through. After every tragic death in this compassionate modern world, a certain traditional monument is bound to be erected with the intention of providing the loved ones of the departed a way to celebrate a life cut short too soon and to begin to heal. This is, of course, the obligatory Facebook memorial page. Custom dictates that if the death is particularly tragic or bizarre, the person who initially sets up said page should be a total stranger, or at the very least a sympathetic former stalker trying to deal with the shakeup of the obsession that has driven his or her life. In Sharon's case, she had been entirely correct about her parents. Each had assumed the other would fly to Toronto to attend their daughter's service, so both, in the interest of family peace, of course, and, well, Sharon won't know either way, had elected to skip the memorial. Instead, they each made identical phone calls to Sharon's two older brothers, Skip in South Africa and Harrison in Dubai, to tell them of the tragedy and to make sure they wouldn't waste their time and hard-earned money making a useless trip back to Canada where there were certainly better ways to use both. Each parent also insisted that he or she would attend, and that the other half, the worst half, of course, of the splintered pair, would almost certainly let their daughter down again and make some kind of lame excuse not to show up. Since neither Skip nor Harrison had been in the country for a dozen years, the Bakoviches senior were fairly certain this prevarication would go unchallenged. The only regret for either was that upon hearing about Sharon's death, Mrs. Vakovich, still swearing she was just about to return to her maiden name, called Skip first, and Mr. called Harry, so that neither was able to claim victory in having made both notifications first. Neither them nor their elder offspring had the least interest in setting up a Facebook memorial page for Sharon. Her friends, such as they were curiously unmoved by her death, as you, general reader, may have surmised from the sparse turnout at the graveside. In point of fact, the attendees were 1. Mr. Jacobson, the maintenance man from Sharon's apartment building, who had a big soft spot for her because she was so entirely unfailingly polite and always apologized whenever she needed something fixed. Carrie Richmond, number 2, whose dog Sharon walked regularly and who honestly believed she would never find another walker as willing to put her own plans aside just to jump to Carrie's aid. Number 3, Steve, from accounting, who developed a fairly decent-sized crush on Sharon after reading her Plenty of Fish profile and recognizing her as a co-worker, but who had not yet been able to fit her into his rather busy dating life. Number 4, some lady who went to every funeral at that particular cemetery because of her belief that cemeteries should never be treated like goddamn Starbucks and run like businesses by soulless men in suits. And 5, Elena Karpova, a slight acquaintance to whom Sharon often spoke at the bus stop, who was 80 and feeling her own mortality a little too much these days, and appreciated the schadenfreude of a much younger woman passing away so suddenly while she remained as strong as a horse despite the slight stiffness in her knees during the winter. And finally, number 6, Tina from grade 6, who'd been Sharon's best friend for one not particularly memorable school year before she moved across town and discovered boys. She was still carrying an embarrassing load of guilt over that one, and attending Sharon's funeral seemed to be the last chance she'd ever have to assuage it. None of them, either, set up a Facebook page. The people at the soup kitchen were very nice, although the redhead caught a couple of them exchanging glances when they thought she wasn't looking. That made her just uncomfortable enough to refuse the soup and instead take just a random sandwich and another bottle of water and leave the building. Outside, she found a bench occupied by a messed-up lady who seemed to be vibrating as if the world was moving a heck of a lot faster in the air just around her. The redhead might not have known much about crack addicts, but it was pretty clear to her that the lady was harmless, if not in exactly the best shape. She unwrapped the sandwich. It was the first real food she'd held in her hand since she'd awoken from her sleep. The dumpster behind vegan goodness had been a bust, but she figured it might offer at least a little shelter in a corner behind. It wasn't that she was afraid of notice, but she hadn't exactly racked up the best kind of responses so far. After a few screams from a drunkard or two, charging as if they had believed that she was really a zombie and out for brains, she decided to cut the chance of being seen as a threat and keep to alleys at nighttime as much as possible. She bit into the sandwich and she forced herself to swallow. Tuna. That was something she knew and gave her a tiny surge of memory. School? Public school. Sandwiches in an orange insulated zip-up sack, Oreo cookies in a baggie. No, that was it, nothing more. And the bite of sandwich wasn't sitting quite right. She took another couple of bites in quick succession. Nausea swamped her, nearly turning her vision black. She leaned to the side of the bench and threw up everything she'd just eaten. "What do you want?" the redhead whispered to it. The crack lady whipped her head around to face the redhead. "Nothing," she said, apparently in response. She sounded offended. The redhead, embarrassed at being caught talking to herself, shrugged into herself a little more, carefully wrapping the sandwich up. A moment later, despite the harshness of her previous tone, the crack lady said in a more conversational tone of voice, "So, what you on?" The redhead was confused. The bench for now. Tonight, probably on the ground beside a dumpster. "You're funny," said the crack lady, showing yellow teeth, but mostly present. "I like that." The redhead tried to smile back. It didn't go too badly. They sat in silence for a few minutes. Finally, probably because the silence was a little heavier than conversation might be, the crack lady said, "Have you asked me? Life isn't all it's cracked up to be. Get it? Crack." Sorry, just lost my place there. The redhead sighed. Philosophy was at least a distraction from hunger. Better to contemplate her past mortality than the pate of the woman next to her. Brains? Could that really be what she was supposed to eat? "I kind of miss it," she replied finally. "Crack? Life?" "Yeah," chuckled the crack lady. She seemed to think the redhead had made a joke. Because I'm dead?" she clarified. The crack lady chortled, making a bit of a snorting sound. "Tell me about it. Then I get some juice in me and I'm way too alive." She wasn't getting it. Suddenly the redhead felt overwhelmed by the need to tell someone, anyone, even somebody who probably wouldn't remember in an hour, much less repeat it to anyone who might know what to do about the whole crazy situation. "No," she said, still trying to get through. "I'm actually dead and rotting a little, I think." "Tell me about it," said the crack lady, slapping the redhead's knee. "Then I get some juice in me and I'm way too alive." The redhead started to feel a little frustrated. Should she mention to the crack lady she just made the same joke twice? The crack lady leaned over. "That's some nasty shit you're on, honey." The redhead looked down. A bit of skin had started to peel away from her forearm. Were the veins starting to look more bluish than pink? She scratched the loose skin away, and it came away in a strip. "Crap," she said quietly. "Not just rotting, but falling apart." The crack lady leaned closer, shook a finger. "Gotta stop picking at her, it'll get worse." "Yeah," said the redhead, non-committal. Just how much worse could it get at this point? The crack lady leaned back into the bench and they settled back into silence, broken only by the crack lady's occasional coughing. Finally, the crack lady poked the redhead in the shoulder, then poked at the sandwich. You gonna eat that?" I do have copies of a chapbook for sale for $3, and I will take orders for Undead Redhead. More copies.
This video has been brought to you by the works of Stephen B. Pearl.